I'm General Goswami, Deputy Director and Head UN Cell at USI. On behalf of Director USI, Director Challenges Forum, I extend a very warm welcome to Shri Sanjay Sharma, Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, and Mr. Olsson, Fridh, Director General FBA Sweden, and Chair Challenges Forum Partner Meeting for today's event. Excellencies, dignitaries, partners of Challenges Forum, participants virtually connected, and ladies and gentlemen, Namaste. One greeting, Indian greeting, which conveys everything. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, because people virtually connected are from the different part of the world today. Theme of Challenges Annual Forum 22 this year is Future of Peace Operations, with 3 sub-themes. That is, place for preventive deployment in diplomacy, protecting the protectors, and protection of civilians. This event is co-hosted by Challenges Forum and the USI, with support of Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, Indian Center for UN Peacekeeping, ICRC, and UN Women. A few words about the USI and the Challenges Forum. United Service Institution of India was established in 1870. Today we are 152 years and oldest tri-service autonomous body in Asia, not only in India. Besides strategic issues, we do pay attention to the UN peacekeeping, and somehow the USI has played a very stellar role in furtherance of the India's UN peacekeeping endeavors. We do conduct various events and participate both at national and international level to put across the India's point of view on various UN related aspects. Challenges Forum, founded in 1996, is an international platform for a constructive dialogue on the UN peacekeeping. And today it has a global partnership of 24 countries and 50 UN peacekeeping organizations. But USI association with the Challenges Forum goes back the history to 1990s, when General Satish Nambiar, he was the head of the mission and the force commander with the UN mission in Yugoslavia. He was on the International Advisory Board of the FBA Academy, that is the founder of the Challenges Forum. And next step was in 2000, there was a joint event organized by the Challenges Forum and the USI in September 2000. That is 13 to 15 September, gentlemen, 22 years and 21 days back. So welcome to the Challenges Forum to India after 22 years. It is quite a coincidence. The event took place in the same auditorium, same tables, same setting. You will see some photographs which have been displayed out of 2000. And the event, somehow, I don't know how, but themes were also similar. Theme that year was Challenges of Peacekeeping and Peace Support into 21st Century, United Nations Peacekeeping in 2015, a perspective. Now today we are talking of future of peace operations. In 2000, they were talking of what likely to happen in 2015, how you like. So the themes are also coincidentally quite akin. That time, opening remarks was given by Ms. Annika Hilding Norberg, the founder director of Challenges Forum, and I think the longest serving director from 1996 to 2017. For 21 years, she was the director. And I have tried to manage some photographs from her, which has been displayed out today. One thing I'd like to share with you, that session in 2000, in September 2000, Jalan Satish Nambiar, he was the director USI, and he chaired the session, and he's with us today in this forum. To commence the proceeding further, now I'll request General B.K. Sharma, Director USI, to give his opening remarks.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, particularly our partners from the foreign countries, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you for this international event that is started what you call is the Challenges Forum 2022. We are very happy to partner with the Challenges Forum and other partners and put this event together after a pause of about 3 to 4 years of very difficult COVID time. It gives us added happiness that we've been able to undertake these activities in the physical form. Now, today we are being represented by about 45 countries. There are about 75 foreign participants, and most of them are digitally connected across the globe. Even the presence here, it gives you a microcosm of multilateralism, which is eminently represented by the United Nations. And today's theme is not only very, very contemporary, but it is very, very futuristic, the very question of future of UN peacekeeping operations. And the sub-themes today are the preventive diplomacy, which is the hallmark of reducing conflict and casualties, protection of the protectors, that is the blue helmets, and protection of civilians who always get into the crossfire whenever there are conflicts, and particularly the crime against women and children, which are very, very important to address. Now, as we know that this theme has become more pertinent from the point of view that today there is a great power contestation. The P5, who are supposed to be the custodians of global peace and security, are themselves at loggerheads. And there is contestation, which we have seen. There is some people call it the new Cold War. Some people are calling it great game. But these are all semantics. In a nutshell, what we are watching is a world which is characterized by VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Here, the old form of warfare, where you had classic intra-state conflicts and state-to-state conflicts, have been substituted by new forms of warfare. What you call is the multi-domain warfare, wherein we see politics, economy, diplomacy, trade, technology, everything being put together to fight and to contest for a strategic influence. And this kind of a warfare is not only confined to the conventional domains, but is transgressing into non-linear strategic frontiers like cyberspace, information space, outer space. Then there are a multitude of means which are being used. These are state players, non-state actors, kinetic means, non-kinetic means, linear, non-linear means. But two very important developments which are taking place. One is the use of disruptive technology by the contestants, and second is the strategic communication in the era of what you call is social media, where it's very difficult to distinguish between who is right and who is wrong. It is all actually a contestation of narratives. And even non-state actors, the technology enables them to actually put their narrative in a very, very forceful manner. So therefore, how do we navigate these challenges which are facing us in the eyes in terms of our ability to diagnose different conflict scenarios, how these are likely to pan out, the role of P5, then other aspects of non-traditional security threats, like we've seen the 3 strategic shocks that we encountered, the COVID, then we had US withdrawal from Afghanistan, which has put it further in the throes of dark ages, and then you have Ukraine conflict. And other aspects that we need to really put together, because we can't use old methodologies and old paradigms to resolve new generation modern and futuristic problem. But these challenges are also giving us a host of opportunities in terms of undertaking reforms. And these reforms should be, what should be the mandate of the UN under the new strategic milieu? What should be the strategy, structures, systems, and what kind of multi-domain, cross-domain skills that we need? I'm sure that this seminar will have a holistic look at the whole range of these issues and come out with certain policy recommendations, which would be very, very useful for the Secretary General's Agenda 2023, which is, looking at the reforms of the United Nations. Now, where does USI fit into this whole matrix? As my deputy director has said, that we are the oldest institution here and we have very close association with matters that are UN. We have global partnership not only with the Challenges Forum, but also with SPON, NOPI, UNITAR, and we've been conducting events with them. We got into partnership with our MEA think tank, that is Indian Council of World Affairs. And last year we conducted about 6 events together, which resulted into publication of about 6 monographs, and we have some more events of that nature in pipeline. So we want, together with ICW and other stakeholders, want to provide USI as a robust platform for looking at issues at the policy and doctrine level, and also have an interface with our Center for UN Peacekeeping here. One thing in which USI stands out vis-a-vis many other think tanks here in India is that we look at strategic net assessment, we do build scenarios, and we also do strategic gaming for the National Command Authority and for our National Defense College and the war colleges. And today it's become more pertinent for us to look at the alternate futures of certain conflict zones and look at what if situations and identify those critical uncertainties for which we need to be forewarned and prepared before they really erupt. So with these words, I look forward to a very, very fruitful session of cross-pollination of ideas. And I wish the proceedings all the best for the day. So with these words, I think I'll just close my welcome remarks here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan Sharma. Now I'll request Pernilla, Rydén Director, Challenges Forum, for the opening remarks.
Excellencies, highly valued partners, distinguished guests. Finally, after all this time, we meet in person. In January, most of us were filled with the expectation that we were on our way out of the tunnel, leaving the worst part of the pandemic behind us. Instead, new critical challenges are now overshadowing our hopes for a more peaceful and predictable future. There are more conflict and war in the world today than I have ever experienced in my lifetime. The United Nations Charter, the core values, and the system are being questioned in a deeply worrying way. Against this background, I believe it is particularly important that the Challenges Forum come together again to collectively address incredibly complex problems. We did remain connected virtually, and this served as a channel of communication. However, real-life problems can only be solved through real-life interaction and partnership. The strength of our long-standing cooperation is the convening mandate of the Challenges Forum to build bridges, to create mutual understanding, and to generate innovative ideas. I'm therefore most grateful to General B.K. Sharma and General P.K. Goswami and the entire United Service Institute of India for generously hosting us here in New Delhi for the Challenges Annual Forum 2022. India is a renowned and reliable contribution to UN peace operations, and it plays a significant role in influencing the international peace and security agenda, including through its current role in the UN Security Council. There are no shortcuts to international peace and security. Peace can only be achieved on the ground, working together with the affected countries and its people. It is therefore essential to put the population first and to apply a people-centered approach to peace operations. Local, regional, and global perspective on peace and security are equally important. Hence, the UN needs to work closely together with regional organizations and sub-regional arrangements regarding peace operation, not the least on the African continent. These and other priority issues will be on our agenda in the coming 2 days. We will be focusing on developing and strengthening international peace operation, including through supportive partnerships, preventive measures and deployments, and a broad range of protecting issues. The annual forum provides a unique and valuable opportunity for us, Challenges partners, UN colleagues, invited subject matter experts, and the diplomatic representatives. Through engaging for free, fruitful, and forward-looking discussions, in order to bring ideas to possible solutions. For this, we will need to mobilize a significant amount of so-called, I'm trying now, jogar. Did I pronounce it? I try again, jogar. I find this wonderful Indian expression that good friends told me about yesterday very interesting. Interpreted into our terms, it captured the nature of our challenges and mindsets that we require to meet our objectives. It can best be described as an extremely innovative and out-of-the-box thinking, or surprisingly creative life hacks that maximize resources. This will hopefully make it possible for us as a Challenges Forum to feed into the UN Secretary General's initiative of the new Agenda for Peace. These issues will mostly engage the partnership of the Challenges Forum for the next 2 years leading up to the Summit of the Future 2024. In times of mounting challenges, inclusive dialogue and genuine partnership has never been more important. Changes begins with new ideas. So please take this opportunity to share your views and opinions, listen and learn from colleagues, try out new ideas and thoughts, and be bold in your proposals and recommendations. With a parallel to peace operations, let us apply a participant-centered approach and strive towards creating sustainable results. And of course, adding a pitch of jogar. And with this, I'm sure that we will have a productive Challenges Annual Forum 2022 here in New Delhi. Thank you.
May I now request Mr. Olsson, Fridh, Chair Challenges Forum Partner Meeting and Director FBA Sweden. He is the former Minister for the International Development Cooperation of Sweden. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, ambassadors, and honored participants, all protocol observed. I'm thrilled to be here to attend the Challenges Annual Forum here in New Delhi. in the beautiful capital of incredible India. My name is Olsson Fridh. You would still call it recently appointed Director General of the Folke Bernadotte Academy, Sweden's government agency for peace, security and development. And we are a partner, a proud partner, and also host of the Challenges Forum International Secretariat. As the forum gathers here in Delhi to unpack what the future of peace operations might be, the world is also turning its attention to the capital of Sweden, to Stockholm, because this is the week when the names of this year's Nobel laureates are being publicized. So what could possibly be a better way to start off our sessions here at the forum than to turn to the Nobel laureate in literature almost 100 years ago, 1923, Rabindranath Tagore, the Indian poet. And he's written a lot of beautiful words, but one sentence I think comes back to me standing before you and before the days that we have in front of us. He writes, faith is the bird that feels the light when the dawn is still dark. Today, international peace operations are facing a multitude of challenges, including entrenched armed conflicts, systematic and brutal attacks on civilians, deadly asymmetric threats, violent extremism, and climate-related security risks. And in a world of growing polarization and an increased number of armed conflicts, there's a worrying lack of trust in international organizations and severe limitations in UN funding and critical threats to stability and rule-based order. And in this world, the UN Secretary General's new agenda for peace constitutes an important and an inclusive effort to try to advance more comprehensive and an integrated approach to peace and security. But the lack of respect for agreed fundamental UN principles are deeply disturbing. UN peace operations mandates to protect civilians are not backed with adequate resources and capabilities. And as always, the most vulnerable in society suffer the most from conflicts. There are also alarming reports on increased violent attacks on peacekeepers. This directly affects peace operations' ability to interact with local communities, build resilient and peaceful societies, and deliver on their protection mandates. People-centered approaches are becoming more relevant, in particular in countries ruled by non-recognized authoritarian regimes. There's a need to be more agile and determined in relation to preventive diplomacy and the primary of politics. The international community must now make better use of all its instruments and tools in addressing threats to international peace and security. This could potentially reinstall faith in preventive action. The Challenges Forum provides us, partner organizations and key stakeholders, with a unique, informal, inclusive, and impartial platform for open and candid discussions on how peace operations can be continuously developed and provided with the best possible tools to responsibly address the emerging peace and security challenges in today's world. We must be the bird at dawn. The Challenges Forum partnership has always looked into the future. It is particularly well placed, I would say, to contribute with qualitative and collective ideas and recommendations on how to bring the new agenda for peace forward, also beyond this forum. In conclusion, I wish to warmly thank the United Service Institution of India for generously hosting us. I'm wishing all of you, all of us, participants here, an exciting forum as we now embark on this invaluable engagement with each other. And I thank you in advance for the sharp and catalytic input that you will give into our discussions. And allow me to emphasize again that the Folke Bernadotte Academy remains committed to our common cause. War, conflict, and instability can only be resolved together and with peaceful means. And the Challenges Forum is a manifestation of this conviction. But again, as I conclude, let us return to Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore. You cannot cross the sea merely by standing and staring at the water. So, friends and colleagues, let's get to action. Thank you very much.
Before I invite my chief guest, Shri Sanjay Verma, Secretary, Minister of External Affairs, Government of India, few words about him. Shri Sanjay Verma is a career diplomat and was India's ambassador to Spain, Andorra, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and African Union. He holds master and a fellowship in international studies. Multilateral diplomacy and the UN is one of the charter which is in the present appointment looking after. Last week, he very actively participated in the UN General Assembly 77 at New York. Over to Shri Sanjay Verma to deliver the inaugural address.
Major General B.K. Sharma, Director, USI, Ms. Pernilla Rydén, Mr. Jean-Pierre Lacroix, Mr. Per Olsson Fridh, Deputy Director, Major General Goswami. I also recognize colleagues, Resident Coordinator of the UN, Mr. Shobi Sharp, General Nambiar, Lieutenant General Fernandez, my dear colleague, the DG of ICWA. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, excellencies, I add my voice and that of the Minister of External Affairs to warmly welcome you all to this engagement. 22 years is a long time. 7.5 months is also a very long time in international affairs. A lot has changed. I think if you were to apply the word disruption to our times, I think it would be probably an understatement. I mean, whether it is sociology or political science or essential basic concepts are all being challenged, whether it's the monetary policy, social contract, the Westphalian system, everything is in the air. So is peacekeeping. A reality is in the air, and how we negotiate this reality through different quarters at different places on the planet at different time zones, but all towards a common purpose of understanding how humans are going to organize themselves across continents, across genders. I mean, it's a buffet of unprecedented variety of challenges. And this gathering today, the seminar over the next 2 days, is going to address a very, very important subject. It's part of the larger reformed multilateralism, but anchored in the UN system. We are all collectively invested in the UN. The future of peace operation is an important concern. I congratulate Challenges Forum and USI for organizing this event. Coming out of the horrors of the Second World War, the world placed immense hope on the United Nations as one of the important institutions of global governance to maintain international peace and security. Even early on, the UN system was very clear-eyed about the possibility of situations that would need for legitimate and legally sanctioned presence of international troops in conflict situations. The UN peacekeeping missions came out of this realization. Over the last 7 decades, countries around the world have contributed immensely to UN peacekeeping effort. India takes considerable pride and satisfaction in our peacekeeping credentials. We have contributed over 250,000 troops to this cause since the 1950s. We are currently deployed in 9 out of the 12 UN peacekeeping missions. 177 Indian soldiers have paid the ultimate cost for their duty in the UN system. I would like to pay homage to all the valiant peacekeepers from all troop contributing countries who have laid down their lives for international peace. During our current stint in the UN Security Council since January 2021, India has used every opportunity to draw attention of the Council to the political and security challenges faced by peacekeeping missions once the Security Council provides us mandate and the need to address them. UN peacekeeping has become increasingly challenging in the face of growing violence across conflict theaters, with a diminishing focus on the political process and an increasing presence of non-state actors. It is critical, therefore, to reassure and reassess our approach towards peacekeeping, as well as to address the security and operational challenges faced by peace operations. To address these challenges, I would submit the following points for deliberation and consideration by the forum. First, it is important that peacekeeping missions are given a clear and realistic mandate, which is also matched equally by provision of adequate resources. The problem arises to a large extent because troop and police contributing countries do not have a role in the decision-making process. This anomaly should be rectified sooner than later. Consulting TCCs while reviewing mandates should become a standard norm while crafting peacekeeping mandates by the Council. We have advocated for this in the Security Council, and we continue to urge other major TCCs to be vocal about this need. Second, peacekeeping missions should be deployed prudently with full recognition of the limitations. Equally important is to improve the understanding of mandate of peacekeeping operations among the local stakeholders as to what a UN peacekeeping mission can and cannot do for them. Effective mission communication strategy and coordination with host government plays a critical role in this regard and would help in addressing misinformation and disinformation against peacekeepers and enhancing safety and security of peacekeepers. Third, we should make all-out efforts to bring the perpetrators of crime against peacekeepers to justice. During the August 2021 presidency, India piloted Security Council Resolution 2589 on the theme of protecting the protectors. Its primary intent was to ensure that whenever or wherever a crime against a UN peacekeeper is committed, the host country would ensure that the perpetrators of the crime are brought to justice in a fixed time frame. This was adopted unanimously with all 15 members co-sponsoring the resolution. Host nations will need to ensure implementation of measures adopted by the UNSC under Resolution 2589 to address the issue of impunity of crimes against peacekeepers. Fourth, establishing trust and ensuring smooth coordination between the peacekeeping mission's leadership and the host state is essential to achieve the desired goals of peacekeeping operations. Peacekeeping missions should encourage national ownership of the peace building process among various stakeholders and adhere to the fundamental principles of peacekeeping. Fifth, the role of women peacekeepers need emphasizing in effective peacekeeping. India takes pride in having deployed the first ever all-women peacekeeping contingent in Liberia in 2007, which inspired a whole generation of Liberian women to take part in that country's security sector. We stand ready to contribute further to this cause. Sixth, there is need to equip peacekeeping missions with appropriate technological tools and equipment to enhance the effectiveness of their operations and safety of peacekeepers. India has been a strong advocate of introducing new and advanced technology in peacekeeping missions to overcome security and mandate implementation challenges. In 2021, India supported rolling out the Unite Aware platform aimed at enhancing safety and security of peacekeepers and signed an MOU with the UN C4ISR Academy for Peace Operations in Entebbe, Uganda to meet its training and technology needs. Seventh, the need for addressing the insecurity of civilians caused by terrorist groups cannot be ignored. However, the primary responsibility to protect civilians from non-state group across its territory lies with the host state. We should strengthen capabilities of the host state security forces by providing them adequate training and logistical support. Eighth, peacekeeping missions need to factor an exit strategy from their very inception. In face of the spate of conflict zones across global landscape, redundant peacekeeping operations have a high opportunity cost. Incorporating an exit strategy in the mandate also puts a finite deadline on all stakeholders to strive to deliver with a sense of urgency. Last but not the least, it is a matter for regret that in spite of the valiant sacrifices made by our peacekeepers in the line of duty serving under the blue flag, even today, we do not have a formal memorial wall at the UN headquarters to honor their sacrifice. While there have been several recommendations from the C34 to the UN system, the project has yet to see the light of day. The future of UN peacekeeping will be served well by honoring its past. In the course of the 77th UNGA, we will seek your support as India hopes to address this long-standing anomaly. In conclusion, the success of UN peacekeeping ultimately depends not just on weapons and equipment, but on giving agency to the moral force in the decisions of the UN Security Council by a solid follow-through political process involving host countries and unambiguous mandates. India, in line with its time-tested credentials and experience in this domain, stands ready to support any sincere effort in that regard. I am confident that the deliberations in this forum will enrich understanding of the complexity that UN peacekeeping missions face today and will help the Security Council and TCCs and all the other stakeholders to better appreciate each other's viewpoints. Finally, I hope foreign participants here will have some time off to soak in the cultural and social landscape of this vast, beautiful country. Do take time. You are here in India at an incredibly transformational time. The whole country is, as we speak, being rebuilt. You can see a lot of construction in Delhi. So it's not just the construction of physical infrastructure, but I think mindsets are changing. There's new energy, there is new motivation in the country. We are growing at an incredible 6 to 7% in these difficult times. We have made our presence felt in the UN system. We are strong votaries of a reformed multilateralism. And it is, I think it will be one of those great counterfactual facts of a time is that 1/6 of humanity, one of the fastest growing economies, a positive net security provider, one of the oldest civilizations of the world, is not part of the decision-making process in the UN system. And that in itself is a food for thought apart from the peacekeeping deliberations. So I welcome you again, and I thank the organizers for this opportunity to address you. And I wish all of you the very best for the ensuing 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay Verma, for very nicely highlighting the concerns of the troop contributing countries and the police contributing countries. Gentlemen, now is the time for the keynote address. And this keynote address is by Ms. Komfo Ira, President and CEO of International Crisis Group. Due to some unavoidable reasons, she could not make it to the event. So we'll play the recorded address by her. Over to Penny.
Good morning. I'm delighted to speak to you today and only sorry that I'm not at the Challenge Forum in person. Thank you to the forum, to the Folke Bernadotte Academy, and in particular, the United Services Institute of India for hosting this event. 2022 has been a dramatic and turbulent year. To help you frame your discussions, I want to talk about 4 major trends in conflict that Crisis Group is watching and how they relate to peace operations. I will then make some remarks about the state of international conflict management and the need to acknowledge both the limits and strengths of peace operations. I hope that these remarks will stimulate your discussions and provoke some rigorous debate. Let me begin with 4 comments on changing trends in conflict and how these relate to peace operations today. First, we live in a dangerous world, although the distribution of risks is uneven. Even before escalation of hostilities in Ukraine, we saw the number of wars worldwide rising. The Uppsala Conflict Data Program registered a post-1945 record number of wars worldwide in 2020 to be 56. This figure fell to 54 last year, but at the same time, the overall number of fatalities recorded in conflicts worldwide went up. However, it is worth noting that the level of violence differs by region. Roughly half the conflicts recorded by Uppsala in recent years were in Africa, which of course remains the main region of focus before the United Nations Security Council. As data analysts note, in 2021, Africa itself witnessed its bloodiest year since the Ethiopia-Eritrea War in 1990 to 2000. This is a good reminder that while we focus on Ukraine today, other regions face major conflict and risks of conflict. And where there are conflicts, there is a need for prevention, peacemaking, and your focus today, peace operations. In the last decade, we have seen a gradual decline in the number of peacekeepers deployed under the banner of the United Nations worldwide. But the current trends in conflict suggest that in the near and medium term, there will be a need for either the United Nations or other organizations such as the African Union to field more peace operations. My second point is that global economic shocks raise the risks of new conflicts. Crisis Group fears that issues that are high on the United Nations agenda, such as economic and global supply shocks linked to the war in Ukraine, could contribute further to unrest and conflict worldwide. We worry that rising food prices, debt crisis, and other economic upsets, including those resulting from COVID-19 pandemic, will lead to more instability this year. And in some weak states where institutions are weak and violence is already a threat, that could escalate into deeper internal conflicts. We are currently undertaking a global analysis of this risk. These global risks will affect countries where peace operations are deployed. We've already seen a profound economic crisis that is threatening to lead to state collapse, for example, in Lebanon, with uncertain consequences for the UN force there. That is why, as Crisis Group, we have recently argued in a deep study of the war economy in Yemen that we need to integrate economic analysis into our work and use economic experts to think through about UN mediation, peacekeeping, and peace-building operations. In a time of cascading global economic turndown, we all see the linkages between peacemaking and economics more clearly. My third point is that climate change is already reshaping conflict risks. While climate security has been lowered down the UN this year after Russia vetoed a Security Council resolution drafted by Ireland and Niger on the same issue last December, Crisis Group believes this remains an acute overarching challenge. We have studied and are studying concrete cases of issues relating to climate change, such as major alterations in weather patterns and drought. These are reshaping conflicts in regions, including the Sahel, the Horn of Africa, and the Middle East. To offer you one concrete example with a direct impact on a UN peacekeeping mission, we can say with confidence that shifting weather patterns are contributing to mass displacement in South Sudan. And in some cases, this displacement is exacerbating existing ethnic tensions and leading to violence. And to quote a news report from the UN mission in South Sudan, just last week, civilians displaced by flooding are angry, hungry, and sick. We need to give peace operations the tools to foresee and respond to climate-related humanitarian crises and violence. We have the predictive tools necessary to identify where there's a high risk of unusual weather patterns leading to floods and displacement in a country like South Sudan. And UN planners and peacekeeping contingents should be able to use this data to work out where there is a high risk of displacement fueling conflict as well. My fourth point is that we are analyzing wars through a fog of misinformation and disinformation. It is commonplace that there is an information war between Russia and Ukraine. This is playing out in social media, traditional media, and indeed in institutions such as the United Nations, that is making it harder for policymakers and the public to understand the progress of war and options for peace. This is simply a high-profile example of a trend we see in many conflicts today. And Crisis Group has tracked examples of conflict where conflict parties use social media to spread disinformation in crisis situations, whether it's in Venezuela or Cameroon, for example. This matters for peacekeeping. We know that United Nations missions themselves are also targets of coordinated disinformation in such cases as South Sudan, where opponents of the mission accused it of spreading COVID in 2020. And in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Crisis Group believes that some of the politicians there stirred up recent protests against the UN mission there, MONUSCO, by spreading misinformation about the mission. As we recommended in a recent briefing on challenges for the United Nations in the year ahead, it is essential that MONUSCO in the DRC invest in communications designed to convey the mission's values, build confidence, and counter disinformation. That message is true for all peace operations today. I now want to use my final minutes with you to turn to the international mechanisms that will help prevent and resolve conflicts, including peace operations. And I'd like to make three very quick points. First, international mechanisms are more resilient than we sometimes fear. To start with some good news, we do see evidence that organizations like the United Nations are more resilient to major global crises than their critics suggest as well. The Security Council has, for example, managed to maintain a minimum degree of cooperation on most crises on its agenda, and innovated with important mandates such as Afghanistan and Somalia since February, despite tensions over Ukraine. The UN has also shown some operational resilience in major recent tests, for example, maintaining its presence in Kabul after the Taliban takeover and acting as an interface with the Taliban and keeping over 1,000 staff of its staff in Ukraine. And of course, many UN and non-UN peace operations have also had to face major threats over the last year. UN forces have found themselves under fire from actors ranging from jihadi forces in Mali to the M23 rebel group in Eastern Congo. And UN forces have sometimes struggled to deal with these adversaries, but while it is useful to look closely at lessons from recent crises, we should also acknowledge that UN forces continue to operate, support national partners, and protect civilians in many dangerous environments today. So we should never be afraid to discuss peacekeeping operations flaws, but we must also celebrate peacekeepers' courage and service. Second, states are increasingly drifting towards ad hoc crisis management mechanisms rather than relying on the United Nations or similar institutions. That said, we have to recognize that many states are turning towards ad hoc mechanisms to deal with conflicts rather than relying on the United Nations and others established international or regional institutions to handle their problems. Significantly, I can mention two on the Africa continent. For example, in Eastern Congo, the Congolese government has invited neighboring Uganda to send troops to stamp out militias there in the east of the country rather than relying on the UN mission. And in the case of Mali, the government has adopted an increasingly confrontational approach to the UN mission there and to the Security Council, hampering the mission's movement and opposing its human rights work. In some cases, Crisis Group encourages such ad hoc arrangements as the best or only available mechanism to halt or resolve conflicts. But we also recognize that a shift towards more ad hoc and unpredictable resolution models carries risks of its own. Brute force cannot, however, replace political efforts to resolve conflicts, and ad hoc operations cannot replace well-planned peace efforts as well. And my third final point to all of you is that we must face up to the limits of peace operations and also their strengths. So, for example, in a case like Mali, we need to face up to the limits of peace operations in profoundly challenging environments. As we emphasized in our recent briefing that I mentioned on challenges facing the UN in the year ahead, it is essential that the UN leaders and particularly the Security Council should make an honest assessment about whether peacekeeping remains possible in a context like Mali. And let me quote to you what we said in that report. The Secretary General should make it clear that the prospect of MINUSMA having to leave Mali is real, and that the government should be wary of testing the Security Council's collective patience further. The report of the Secretary General should outline the minimum conditions, especially regarding access and movement necessary for MINUSMA to effectively carry out its primary task of protecting civilians and monitoring human rights. That is not something we say lightly. It is not something we like to say at all, but we must be honest with ourselves if a peace operation no longer looks viable. But again, if we must be honest about the limits of peace operations, we must also do all we can to strengthen them. I'm sorry I cannot be with you today in India, but I do hope that you will take this opportunity to talk about strengthening peace operations through improving information and analysis, boosting mediation and good offices, improving the performance, safety and security of peacekeepers, and finally improving peace operations response to disinformation and misinformation. These are difficult and urgent topics. I wish you all well in your deliberations and I look forward to your conclusions. Thank you.
Gentlemen, with this, we come to the end of inaugural session. May I now request General B.K. Sharma, Director, USI, to present the USI mementos to the Shri Sanjay Verma and our Mr. Pierre Olsson. And I request all to join us for some refreshment in the courtyard and time to interact with each other. The next session will start here at 10:45. Request all to be seated in time. Thank you.